Situation. Good. This okay. So I skipped. Yeah, I skipped something that it is important for this information, because again there is a lot of reports regarding this information and reduced information of people to accurate and to make a selection of the accurate information. And it is a fact, it is considered that media coverage of COVID-19 was many times threatening, and news from various channels showed an abundance of fear-inducing messages. And as I said before, even though there were many policies that were considered threatening in that way to our liberty, to our freedom of moving around, to our, I don't COVID was a pandemic. It was considered also, a threat, to humanity in terms of impact of health crisis in that way. We don't say maybe that it was a disaster, but a health crisis for sure. And then how, in terms of vulnerability, people could anticipate what it is going on to resist and also to recover in terms of adapt. There can be also that the main topics that we considered, but these can be extended or it can be reduced. Psychological and social effects of the COVID, of the pandemic, because in many studies it is also regarding PTSD or depression, and towards the clinical and mental health. We will decide, but probably we will focus on the social, and we will see. So not so much on mental health, but, of course we can have your input on this too. Access to information, access to services, and the use of existing support, because countries, and we will see in a while, countries can elaborate many support services, but it is how vulnerable people access those services. We cannot say that countries, even in more vulnerable countries in that way, there were not measures, but it is how we find out, and that will be through their testimonials, how we find out practically, concrete, how did they access that service that existed in that way. So Carmen, together with some colleagues, had a study on students. Almost 1,000 students responded to the questionnaire regarding impact of COVID, including social, psychological aspects. There are some, the article is also in English, it has been also published, so if you think just to go through, we can send it to you as a source. But some main ideas, where should we start, or how should we start the construction of the evaluation instrument, is that exposure to excessive and prolonged stress is associated to various clinical disorders, and adaptive coping strategies are required to reduce the stressors, the effect of stressors, and to increase well-being. COVID-19 is a health emergency, and there were many policies introduced in order to reduce its impact. And but still, even those policies that were introduced could represent a major, impact on the people. Remember the isolation, the vaccination theories and everything. So even though these policies were elaborated to be protective, because they were like that, to be protective, Some people also had a prolonged, it's not that, okay, we have this or we have this and we are fine now, because it was still a prolonged stress, and this exposure to stress can lead to mainly to the clinical disorders, but that's not mean that everybody developed that. Also, COVID or pandemic represented not only an individual trauma, but it was also a collective, psychological and collective trauma, and this is also this is also investigated in that way. And the social impact of COVID-19 is much larger, so its effects are expected to be more dramatic. But when we expose to stress and psychological trauma, we also develop increased preparedness and risk awareness in that way. So effective engagement of coping mechanisms, this is why not everybody develops those disorders, because there are also people, individuals, who develop this effective engagement of the coping mechanisms. And the colleagues approached cognitive reappraisal and emotion suppression. Cognitive reappraisal means that you give another meaning to the negative situation.